Hi there, hope you're having a great day so far. In these last few weeks, life has been really tough on all of us, both mentally, emotionally, also financially, along with a whole list of other things. If we think about it, really, there was no way life could have prepared us for what we've lived through and what we're currently living through at the moment. I guess all we can do at the moment is our best with what we have at our disposal. At times like this, we really do turn to experts as a source of inspiration and guidance. And lucky for us today, we're speaking with Jas Rawlinson, who's going to be helping with her expert tips and advice how to how to ensure that we are mentally fighting fit during this time of self-isolation. Now, Jas Rawlinson is a best-selling Australian author, a mental health speaker, and a mentor. Now, Jas is passionate about empowering survivors of trauma to transform their adversities into powerful memoirs. And she's also worked with a lot of domestic violence and child abuse survivors. And she's also featured in the media across the ABC, news.com.au, the New Zealand Herald, Authority Magazine, and also through Kiddipedia. And we're really glad and really honoured for your time today, Jas. How are you doing?
I'm going all right. Thank you so much for inviting me on today. I think I'm in the same boat as a lot of other people. I have my highs and lows at the moment, good days and days that I'm struggling. And like you were saying in your introduction, all we can really do at the moment is just try to prepare ourselves every day with, the best information we can and trying to do our best to keep healthy and just, push on through these tough times, which will end. But right now they can feel like they're, going to go on forever. So I certainly understand that it's been a struggle here on my end as well.
Yeah. And, time home in isolation has meant that life has really slowed down quite significantly. And when we're busy, we tend to not always be as connected to our deeper thoughts and our feelings, as the busyness tends to overshadow that and doesn't really allow us to be connected to our deepest sense of self. So initially, I'd love to understand from your perspective, why do you think it is important for us to be listening to our thoughts and feelings at this time?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, for so many of us, we're just used to operating on auto all the time, just running on, automatic, going through
Autopilot.
the motion just running on autopilot essentially. And I actually experienced this last year, before any of this coronavirus stuff started happening. I had a year last year where I was super busy and I was working, 7 days a week on my business and not factoring in any self-care anywhere really. So I burned myself out, and it was only when I started to force myself to try and get well again that I started listening to what was going on in my body and my thoughts, and I was a mess. And there was so much stress and anxiety, and it had compounded so much that by the time I finally started listening to it, I had developed this really awful eye twitch on one side that was just going off like every couple of minutes. And that was my body's way of saying, you actually need to stop, because you're just going, you're running yourself into the ground. And I know a lot of other people are probably in this situation too, and maybe this time in self-isolation is forcing them to have that kind of moment of clarity that I did, where they're realizing that we do need to slow down. Because when we are just running on autopilot, or we're so busy that we're pushing our own thoughts and feelings aside, those issues don't go away. They just begin to build on each other and compound. So it is really important to slow down and create the space for ourselves each day to reflect on what kind of day we've had and what's going on in our minds, whether our bodies are showing signs of, additional stress, such as digestive issues, reflux, shaking hands, all those kinds of things that we just kind of get used to pushing aside. So yeah, it is very important to carve out that space each day to reflect and also to work through whatever is coming up for us.
But doing this can actually be quite confronting, especially if people haven't done it before, and we are in a once in a generation situation at the moment. So this is something that maybe for the very first time people are being forced to actually to be still and to be one with their thoughts, and admitting to how they really feel about a situation in their life, and more so than that, allowing us to be able to sit and just to be uncomfortable with it. Because when we're busy, we just push it aside and we just focus then our attention on whatever it is in our life, our, you know, work, life, household, traffic, food shopping, whatever. But this has given us the ability to sit and to be uncomfortable with it, which is really confronting. So how do you think we can best be working through these difficult emotions at this time? And do you have any tips?
Yeah, you're right. It can be really uncomfortable sitting in those feelings. And I do want to say first off that, you know, depending on what each individual person is going through, if it is something that is causing them a lot of distress, you know, it is important to remember that professional help is there to support us with, you know, everyday things that we're going through.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to, you know, make that clear. But it can be uncomfortable to sit with it. For me, in the work that I do, mentoring a lot of, you know, trauma survivors with writing their life stories and storytelling and things like that, when we do work on their stories, you know, a lot of feelings come up, a lot of things that sometimes they thought they had worked through, yet they've kind of been pushing aside in the busyness of life, do resurface. And I think that's a really good example of understanding that, you know, sometimes things can resurface in surprising ways when we least expect. And we live in this age now where we are very sensitive to triggers and things that, you know, can trigger our mental distress. And I think it's really important for people to be aware of that, but to also not automatically run away from discomfort, because discomfort is necessary for growth. So as I said, it depends what you're going through, and mental health support, you know, should always be sought out if you need it. But if you are sitting down at the end of the day or in this time right now of self-isolation and you've got a lot of feelings coming up that are causing you distress, maybe about things from the past or perhaps stresses that you're currently going through, maybe financial situations, you may have lost your job, things like that. It's important to give yourself, again, the space to feel those feelings, reflect on them, and then just take small steps to work out how you can begin, you know, to work through those issues. I just think what you said about, you know, feeling that discomfort is really important for people to be aware of. You know, you don't have to run away from those feelings. They're not necessarily negative, but it is important to reflect on them and then start to make a plan of small little baby steps you can take to begin working through whatever that situation or those emotions are.
Mm. Now, this reminds me a little bit of the blue pill scene in The Matrix. And for anyone that hasn't seen the movie and or maybe understood it completely, but Lawrence Fishburne gives Keanu Reeves two options. He can either take the blue pill or the red pill. And to make this relevant to our current situation, the blue pill gives us the ability to go back to our normal life and to ignore the truth that's really unfolding. And this really means in this current situation that living in blissful ignorance of our current situation, and in this context means we're putting our attention into mundane activities to form escapism. For example, like binge watching Netflix. We've all been there, being absorbed in the news and social media. So just, you know, ignoring sort of, you know, going back to normal life type of thing, but ignoring what's going on. And all of these things, like I said, we've actually done. Now, the red pill gives us the ability to search deeper into ourselves and to investigate internally what we're actually seeing, and to also to work to our true potential as human beings, things like through like meditation, etc. So this is really giving us the opportunity to either be one or the other, or a combination of the two. So I'd love to know, in this scenario, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think it's really great to strike a balance between the two. It's interesting because I just wrote this article for the Courier Mail recently, and it was about, you know, sort of the cultural phenomenon of Tiger King and how everyone's watching Tiger King at the moment. And, you know, it's not a show that I would have probably ever watched in any other circumstance, but because we are at home all the time. And for me, like, I was searching for some form of escapism because everything on TV was so dark and heavy, and everything going on in society has been, you know, so unstable and uncertain. So it makes sense that people are reaching for, you know, things that give them some escapism. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, unless, of course, it is becoming something where it's impacting your ability to function healthily in everyday life. You know, we don't want to be sitting on the couch all day watching Netflix or sitting on our phones all day, because that's not healthy. I think it's important to have that balance of, you know, if you can start the day even on a really positive note of maybe getting straight into exercise or doing some gratitude journaling or reflecting at the very start of the day, listening to a positive podcast or something like that. And then later in the day, you have your time where you're sitting on the couch, binge watching some, you know, silly TV show or trashy TV show. Like, that's okay. It's all right, as long as it's done in moderation.
Yeah, and I think it is probably a combination of the two, that everybody needs to have some form of balance. But also, I guess, whilst we're on the topic of meditation and the thoughts and the topic of actually being one with our thoughts at the moment, do you think that people will be avoiding doing this at this time, so that they aren't really delving into how they really think and feel about situations? Meditation obviously can help with clearing our thoughts also, but do you actually think that people will be avoiding that, and or on the flip side, actually making better use of it to be able to help clear their thoughts and help them deal better with stress and center themselves and stay calm? Do you think it just depends on person to person? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it just depends on the person. You know, if you're somebody who, before all of this happened, was a very, you know, if you were someone who was very aware of your mental well-being and your self-care, you're probably going to be more proactive in seeking out things that will help you to continue, you know, fighting fit mentally. Conversely, if you're somebody who is always pushing your thoughts aside and busy all the time, you're probably going to be struggling with having this, you know, extra time right now, and you may choose to, you know, use escapism into TV and social media and things like that to try and fill that void because you're not ready to address those things. It really is just person to person, but yeah, as I said before, like, it's important to strike that balance, and it's important to make the space for ourselves each day to do something that leads us towards our better self and helps us to continue creating, you know, a healthy routine every day, so that we don't fall into those dark pits of just, you know, endlessly scrolling on social media and not feeling a sense of purpose. So I think everyone's different. I mean, a really great example that just came to mind is a friend of mine, Nicole Gibson. She recently ran a free meditation session, which ended up going for something like 6 hours, but she had all these experts who came in and were doing, you know, breathing exercises and lots of different, you know, things to help people in this time. And she had a phenomenal amount of people sign up for that global meditation session. And I can't remember, I think she had something like 100,000 people log on to do that meditation streaming, you know, together recently. So, I mean, that shows that there are a lot of people out there who are interested in using this time to try new things and look after their well-being. So, yeah, stuff like that's really cool to see.
Yeah. And, you know, in saying that, as human beings, we are like a tribal species, and we do need to be connected with each other through a sense of kinship and social bonding. And what you just mentioned is an example of that, although the people are wanting to work within themselves to still be part of something that's bigger than them also. on the flip side of this, when we are disconnected, I think we, as human beings, we can fall into a lot of negative thoughts and emotions such as depression and frustration and irritabilities, which is going to be very common at the moment too. So from your perspective, how do you think we can overcome these negative emotions of being disconnected at this time?
Well, as I said earlier, it does really come back to self-reflection. And, I'll be honest and say that even I've been struggling during this time. I'm used to being a full-time stay-at-home mum and working from home. But at the same time, I'm used to having a couple of hours a week where, family come to spend time with my son so that I can have some time to myself. And, not really getting that at the moment. And we don't have daily routines. We can't go out places and just get out of the house really, except for a walk around the block. So, I've been struggling with all of this stuff too. And I find that for me, what has really been helping is spending some time every day doing just some simple gratitude journaling exercises. So some people like to do this at the start of the day. For me as a parent, I find that the start of the day I don't really feel like I have time to dedicate to myself at the start of the day with a toddler. So I choose to do it at the end of the day when I'm going to bed. I will set aside, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, but really a couple of minutes is all you need. And just journaling anything that's been stressing me out throughout the day, anything that's on my mind, and also 5 to 10 things that I'm grateful for. So that before I go to bed, I'm transporting all of that, or transferring all of that stress out of my mind and onto paper. And I'm also thinking about things that I am grateful for. And that has been helping me to sleep better lately, because I have had more disrupted sleep than I would usually.
Yes.
And it's interesting because gratitude journaling, scientifically, it has really proven itself to be such an important and powerful self-care tool. And you can, as I said, you can use it in such a small time frame every day. You don't have to be sitting down and journaling for 30 minutes. I know for parents, sometimes it feels like we barely have any time to ourselves, but just carving out that 5 minutes, either at the start or the end of the day, can be really powerful. Gratitude journaling has been proven to help with everything from, better sleep to increased resilience, less negativity and less desire for, seeking retribution, less desire to hold grudges, reduction in aggression, improved self-esteem. There are a lot of physical and mental health benefits to gratitude. So I really do think that is a powerful thing that everybody should be harnessing at the moment, especially if they are finding that they are experiencing depression or anxiety at stronger levels than they usually would. Obviously, seek professional advice from your doctor and your counselor or psychologist as well. But this is something that you can use alongside those things that will hopefully give you, better sleep and better well-being as well.
Mm-hmm. And I guess although the world is still a little crazy and upside down at the moment too, I guess we shouldn't forget that we really do have the power to overcome and achieve, what we put our minds to on a daily basis. And the internet is really a super incredible thing. They've got unlimited access to resources and support through apps and all the stuff that we know. So do you have any online resources that you suggest, aside from what you just mentioned earlier on, but that could help at all?
Yeah, well, I want to say first off that it's really important to make sure that your social media feeds are reflecting the kind of mental well-being that you want to have. So if you're following a lot of pages or people who are constantly negative, or they're making you feel negative and bad about yourself, then that's not going to help your mental well-being at all. So the first thing I say is, as opposed to like any specific apps, it's just important to make sure that you are filling your news feed and social feeds with the kind of stuff that's going to help you grow and have a healthy self-esteem and positive, mental well-being. So some of the, I love to follow people like Celeste Barber because she's so damn funny and so real. That gives me a little bit of, comical escapism during the day. I love to follow Taria Pitt because she is so inspiring and she has a lot of great tips around, goal setting and self-care. And for me as well, I know that a lot of people at the moment are finding it hard not to get pulled down that route of, going down the rabbit hole of negative media or depressing media. So, one thing I've said is, find good books to read. For me, I wrote and created this series called Reasons to Live One More Day Every Day, which is all about inspiring Australian stories, people who've been through adversity, come out the other side, sharing about, what's helped them build positive self-esteem and healthy well-being, what helps them on a day-to-day basis. And I think, regardless of whether you're reading something like that or you're just following people online with inspiring stories, I think it's really important to have those positive stories in our day-to-day lives so that we can challenge ourselves to look for the good and look for the positive, even when we are amidst adversity or, difficult times.
And as a mental health speaker, you've no doubt seen and heard a wide range of challenges that affect people. Now, what do you actually think at the moment are the most common ones that people are affected by at the moment?
Anxiety is the biggest thing at the moment. I think it was Beyond Blue that recently did they did some research through their support forums, and they found that the anxiety levels that people are experiencing around COVID-19 are 7 times higher than the anxiety levels that were being experienced during the Australian bushfires in late 2019, early this year. So 7 times higher anxiety levels. It's crazy. And it's very understandable because the bushfires, for many of us were blessed not to be impacted by that. But with COVID-19, coronavirus, it's something that's impacting people globally, no matter where they live, no matter what their demographic is, how much money they have. And for a lot of people, they feel that, if people that already have pre-existing anxiety issues, like I can only imagine how much that's compounding because they feel that it's, inescapable. So yeah, anxiety, people are definitely experiencing things like depression at higher rates. And we know that calls to suicide support lines are going up, as are domestic violence support lines. Domestic violence is something that people are experiencing at significantly higher rates at the moment because many current victims and survivors are being trapped and isolated indoors with their abusers. So that is something that, of course, is causing a lot of anxiety as well. So it's coming from a lot of different levels, but yeah, the research is showing that anxiety, I think, is the number one thing that is impacting people currently.
Mm-hmm. And at this time, I guess many people may be experiencing these feelings and or some deeper feelings of like depression or greater mental health issues for the very first time. And this can be considered to be very confronting. And our audience is a mix of both mums and dads. And I'd love to be able to know what words of advice do you have, but are they any different from the words of advice that you have for a father as opposed to a mother?
Oh, it's a good question. I think when it comes to self-care, it is relevant regardless of gender. But you have to find what works for you. So, for example, some men, I don't know, some men may be less inclined to sit and journal and think about their feelings as opposed to women. But you've got to work out what works for you. You might feel that it's easier for you to take a walk around the block or through the forest, or take a walk, down to the beach and just think spend time reflecting and also thinking about what you're grateful for, as opposed to sitting down with a journal and writing in it. You don't have to do that, as long as you are carving out time for yourself to have some time to yourself, as well as with, family or loved ones, to think about what is actually going on inside your head and how you can work through those feelings. that's the most important thing. I think it's important, regardless of whether it's a mum or a dad, that you are keeping up with your physical health, so exercising in whatever way you can, and also being aware, self-aware of your mental thought patterns as well, and doing some daily things to work through those, any issues that are coming up there as well.
So what are some simple self-care strategies that mums and families can implement every day, I guess, to help boost their wellness then?
Yeah. So like I said earlier, if you can start the day off on a really strong foot, then, you're doing really well. So you can start the day with some exercise or listening to a positive podcast. I would really encourage you to try to do that. Like I said, if you haven't got the time to sit down first thing in the morning and do some gratitude journaling, which is a really great way to start the day, because you are forcing yourself to start on a positive note, instead of, looking at social media or the news. So I would say, first off, if you can, try and do some gratitude journaling. If you can't, listen to a positive podcast or do some exercise. Those are the very first things that I would recommend you do. Then even if you do feel like you slip up throughout the day, maybe, like I said, you're sitting down binge watching some stuff, or maybe you've eaten something that you didn't plan to eat that was a bit unhealthy, at least you've started the day off strongly. And then I would recommend at the end of the day as well, making that time to sit down, do some journaling about whatever's on your mind, so that you can get it all out of your head before you go to sleep. You might choose to listen to, a positive podcast or something, watch a funny comedy on Netflix or something like that before bed. And also, one thing that I think people often don't think about, but is really important, is if you can at least one day a week try and, have a bit of a digital detox, it will do absolute wonders for your mental health.
Yes.
Because we are so used to getting, our dopamine fix and our dopamine rush through apps, social media, TV, all kinds of things, that our focus and our attention is so, has been decreased so much that we are, we find it hard to just sit down and read a book, or we find it hard to sit down and journal, or to sit and reflect and have that time to think, because we're always looking for our next dopamine hit from something. So I would really recommend, if you can, at least once a week, say on a Sunday, set yourself a time that you are going to go, digital, digital free. You're going to do a digital detox. Try and spend the whole day, if you can, or at least half the day off technology, and instead spend that time doing something like gardening or reading, or journaling or exercise or walking, because those are all things that will help you to slow down and have that space to think about what's on your mind. And you may be surprised by what comes up. You may, in those times where you're doing something maybe a bit mundane, maybe you're doing some gardening or some cleaning, you will get things come to mind that you don't stop to think about when you're busily rushing here and there. There was an excellent TED talk that was done about the importance of boredom and how you can actually use that to increase your mental well-being, and also be more aware of things that you actually want to do with your life that you're not giving thought to, because you're always distracting yourself with other things. So I would really encourage people, to try and set aside some time every week to get off all digital devices and do something that will intentionally slow you down, so that you can be aware of what's coming up for you and what's going on inside.
Self-isolation has really taken away all the structure of our days that we had, previously, in the sense that a Monday to Friday, be it if dropping the kids off at school, picking them up, having their home activities and hobbies with work, etc. So at the moment, I think what a lot of people are finding, and a lot of experts that we are speaking to, speak about the fact that the need for structure is so important. That's what you've just alluded to and you've just mentioned before. So it's about setting the intention of having a positive structure and having some control over your day rather than waking up in the morning and putting the news straight on, and allowing external forces to control what your thought patterns are. And it's a matter of maybe priming yourself and actually taking control of that yourself.
Yeah.
And just leading you into a little bit of my personal thing, what I do, I'm a huge Tony Robbins fan, and he speaks about the priming in the morning. And priming is just setting your intention for the day. And so I start my day every day by, the first thing I do is I start by being grateful for 3 things. And every day they have to be different things. And it really does open my eyes, even if I'm grumbling, I'm tired or whatever it is. It gives me the ability to really see what I have in my life. And they always say that you can't be angry and grateful at the same time. So, and the second thing from that I flow on is I sort of, 3 things that I want to achieve for the day. And this is what my daily morning is like every day. And that helps give me some structure by being grateful for 3 things, asking for help with 3 things. I always think in life, if you don't ask, you don't get. And I think sometimes we can just be in that mindset of just being grumbly and negative and all these things about life. But when's the last time you actually just asked for help and actually just send your thoughts out? So being grateful, and then also asking for 3 things, etc. But my point is that life has taken away the structure of our normal life at the moment. Have some control over providing yourself with some structure, how you want to structure your day as well. Yeah. But going back to what you were saying before, I'd love to know, what are some of the benefits of the gratitude journaling and journaling in general?
Yeah. So specifically for gratitude journaling, some of the most common benefits include, like I said earlier, enhanced sleep, better self-esteem, decreased aggression. It also helps to open up the door to new opportunities and relationships. So I've found, and in my past, so I come from a past with family violence and went through an assault when I was, just out of my teens. So I know that back in those days, I used to constantly attract a lot of negative energy to myself and a lot of negative people and situations. And I could never understand why it was. And it was because I was always focusing on the negative. I would say things to myself like, oh, well, that's, my luck, nothing ever works out for me and everything always goes wrong. And that's just how my life is. And I would say these things to myself instead of, ever focusing on anything positive that happened in my life or anything positive about myself. And we do find that when people are constantly negative, they will attract those negative people and experiences to themselves. When you are constantly practicing positivity and gratitude, you're more likely to open up the door to, more positive situations, opportunities for work or relationships that you probably wouldn't have expected. I know that happens to me a lot now when I will spend time being intentionally, setting aside that intentional time for gratitude. I'm always surprised at the opportunities that come up. So yeah, there's really interesting things like that. It helps with increasing resilience. There's been studies that have found it's assisted with decreasing PTSD in certain situations. The probably the most surprising one that came up to me though was this study that was done in 2016. It was cited in the Greater Good magazine through Berkeley, and they found that through this study, they had a group of people who were writing daily gratitude letters and doing daily journaling, and they found that those people who spent time each day writing a gratitude letter to someone, so for example, they might have been writing a gratitude letter to a family member, a husband, a wife, something like that, someone in their life, those people who did that not only experienced greater well-being, but they found through the study that 3 months on, those people were still experiencing the positive impacts of that gratitude practice. So greater well-being, improved resilience. And the most interesting thing was that only 23% of those people actually sent their gratitude letters. So this is a really interesting thing that people can do, each day or maybe even just once a week, is write a gratitude letter to someone in your life. You don't even have to send it or read it out to them. As this study found, people who just went through, the art of writing that gratitude letter found that they experienced those positive benefits for 3 months afterwards. So I would encourage people to, really try to get into some sort of gratitude practice, because the benefits have been proven to be really quite extraordinary.
I think it's a frequency of wherever your thoughts are and what you project out to the world actually comes back to you, good or bad. So if you're in a really bad frame of mind, you're more likely to, be driving on the road and encounter someone else, and and finding someone else in that same frequency, and or in the same thing. If you're in a positive frame of mind, you're more likely to go somewhere and then see someone else that's smiling back at you, so you sort of attract that same type of energy. And it's always the saying that if you're not grateful for what you already have in your life, what makes you think that you'd be happy with more? So it does open up the frequency of when you are grateful. It changes something in our brain that does open it up, as you just said earlier on, to the opportunity that when you're happy and grateful and you give thanks for what you already have in your life, it does give the opportunity for more to come into your life as well. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like attracts like. And the study that I was just referencing before, I mean, when they actually did brain scans on the people who underwent the study, and they found in those people who were still showing, those positive benefits 3 months later, they actually found that there was greater activation of their medial prefrontal cortex.
Yep.
So yeah, and that's the area that's responsible for decision making and learning. So yeah, as you said, brain, it does do something to our brain, and it does activate that part of the brain that really hones in on learning new skills and focusing on those things that we're learning. And if you are constantly filling yourself with positive sources and positive experiences, then obviously you're going to focus more on that, and you're going to attract more of those positive situations in people. So
yeah, that's equally just as much as about perspective as well, and the lens that we
absolutely.
put on life. Yeah. Can you share some other simple ways that people can actually create positive daily routines whilst they're home in isolation?
Yep. So I know it's something that I've been struggling with, trying to create some sort of sense of daily routine. For me, I guess just to share what I'm doing is I'm trying my best to, stay away from social media in the morning, and instead, like I said, either do some exercise or listen to a podcast. Then, if you're a parent and you're at home with your kids, it's going to be different. You might be into doing some homeschooling with your kids. That might be your day, or you might be looking after your child. But try to find, a balance, like I said earlier, of time for yourself, things that you have to do for not only like to keep the house running and keep the bills paid and things like that, but things that you have to do to improve your mental well-being as well. So you might choose to start the day, like I said, on that really positive note. Maybe go for a walk after that. Do some things around the house, do the things that you need to do. Like if you've just lost your job, you might be setting aside a certain amount of time each day to do job searching or to ring Centrelink, because we know that can take hours and hours. Set aside the time of the day that's going to be your worry period. If you're somebody who has struggles with a lot of anxiety, set aside a time of the day that you're going to acknowledge those worries, and then focus on what you're going to do to move through those things. So like I said, if you've lost your job, it will be thinking about, okay, maybe it's at 4 p.m. each day, or maybe it's at 10 a.m. each day, you're sitting down and thinking about what it is that's stressing you out. And then you go, okay, what do I need to do to start working through this? And your routine might be having that certain amount of time each day that you're doing job searching, or that you're applying for certain considerations, or, things like that. But I think that the main things that we're missing in our routines at the moment for many of us is exercise. So finding a spot in each day that you have your exercise in there, and a spot where you sit down to reflect and do some journaling or gratitude exercises. Adding that can start to help you create a sense of routines.
Yeah, you've given us some really insightful and helpful information today. How would you, I guess, summarize your main message for anyone listening?
What I really want to say to people is that we are all doing it really tough at the moment in different ways. You know, I'm hearing from parents who have their kids in school and they're saying, oh, you know, I shouldn't be feeling so stressed, or I really don't have any right to feel stressed out or depressed because I'm not running around after a toddler, you know, or I'm not looking after a newborn baby. And then I'm seeing other people who aren't parents and they're saying, oh, I don't have any right to feel depressed or anxious right now. And other people are doing it tougher than me. And the thing is that we're all dealing with stress and uncertainty in our own ways. And it doesn't matter if what you're going through, you know, seems lesser than what someone else is going through. If it's impacting you in your life, then it's important, and you need to acknowledge that, and you need to get support to work through that, you know, whatever it is. So yeah, I just want people to know that it's okay, no matter your situation, to be really struggling at the moment and not feeling your best and not feeling at your, you know, peak performance.
Yeah.
But we can all take small steps every day to just be a little bit better than we were yesterday.
Yeah. And I think the main thing is, like, we've shared some really, really great tips during the conversation today. I guess the question for anyone listening, what's one thing that you've taken away from this that you could implement into your life right away? Does it mean that you will go and find an old notebook and start a gratitude journal for yourself? Does it mean that maybe tomorrow morning that you'll wake up and structure your day a little bit differently to ensure that you are being more mindful about how and what you actually are doing that is going to have the cause and effect to help you feel better? And what other wellness techniques that we've spoken about today can you implement into your life if you're already doing some of these things that can help?
Yeah.
But Jas, you've, as I said, given us some really, really great things to go away and think about today. If anyone's got any questions and or want to reach you, whereabouts can they find you?
They can find me on my website, jasrawlinson.com. That's where you can find out more about my writing, coaching and mentoring, my books and my speaking. Or you can also jump on my Facebook page, Reasons to Live One More Day Every Day. That's the name of my book series. And that's where I share a lot of mental well-being advice. And I'm going to be sharing some specific gratitude and journaling exercises over this coming weekend that people can start rolling out, you know, over the weeks ahead. So jump on my website or follow me on there and you can connect and find out more.
Thanks, Jas. I've loved speaking with you again today, and I'm looking forward to it again in the future. Sorry, my brain was just running at 100 miles an hour. Take care. Give my love to your little one, and we'll speak soon.
Thank
All
you.
the best. All right, bye.
Too. Thank you. Thank you
Bye.
for your time.
Bye.